Welcome back, everybody. Hope you're ready for part two. Maybe you've taken a little break. Maybe you're ready for the next step. So not much has changed since part one on selections, but we did add another file. And if you go to your folder, you'll find there's a file called advancedselections.psd, which you can pull up at your convenience. I'm not going to use it just yet, so more on that later. Let's get back to where we left off. So we talked about the CD file, how to save it, what selection options you may want to use for it, but hopefully you've had time to refine those selections and save those out and finish up with that file. Next, we're going to take a look at this bag file to explore some more tools. So let's do that now. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. And, well, okay, let me start with this. I'm now going to start with the quick selection tool, which enables me to then paint an area and select it. So what is this tool doing? It's looking at the contrast. It's looking at those black pixels within the context of this paintbrush. And it's saying, okay, what's around the paintbrush? Well, there's these black pixels that are part of it. But you'll notice that it's stopping short of selecting the carpeting because the carpeting is not part of those darker pixels. And so it did a very good job very quickly because I have such a high contrast image. Even as I zoom in here, you can see the selection is quite accurate. And given the irregular shape here of the bag compared to the circle, that's very important because there's a lot of details. This would take forever if we tried to start with the rectangular marquee tool and then refine that. We could do it that way, and then again, like we did with the CD, use our quick mask tool. But that would take a long time, so this does the job much faster. Okay, so this is a tool that we can definitely take advantage of. But whoops, let me get out of quick mask mode, and let's deselect. Command D if you want to remember that. All right, the other option's even faster in this situation, depending on how it's set. But let's say, for example, click on it. And you notice that everywhere that it found dark pixels similar to what I clicked on, it selected. But because of the flash on the camera, there's a lot of gray and even white pixels inside of the texture of the leather bag. So that became an issue when it came to selecting the bag because the tolerance setting is low. When the tolerance is low, it's very, very concerned with color. And it's not tolerant of colors that are different than the one you clicked on. So if you crank this number up and click again in the same spot, more or less, you'll notice now it selects everything. The selection is way out here. And it's so tolerant that it likes these light colored pixels as much as it likes the black pixels. So let's try something in the middle. Let's try 100. Clicking again. Now you can see it's much more tolerant of the gray, but it's not so tolerant of these white pixels. It likes the black, it likes the dark gray, but it's not so happy with the rest. So you kind of tweak the numbers until you find a tolerance level that's just right for your object in particular so that you get everything you want. So in this case, we could keep cranking up the number till we get closer and closer to 200, and eventually it'll probably get pretty good. I'll try 170, but rather than do that, your best bet is to, once you get fairly close, just start using that add feature we talked about. Remember add to selection? Now we can just come in and say, hey, look, you should really include all of these lighter pixels and make them your friend. Okay, here we go. And we're going to come up here and do the same thing. And now we're becoming more inclusive. We're including everybody. There we go. Okay, so you get the idea. We can start to add these areas in that didn't come along for the ride. Okay, so of course, yes, you could always use your quick mask tool and paint it. It's up to you, whatever method you think works best. But I think you've seen that this tool, the quick selection tool, for this particular job is probably the best option. It was very quick and very accurate. So what are some of the options you have under this tool? Well, if you go back and look, you'll see that there's some similar options to the marquee tools in that we have the regular. We also have the add, okay? So we can paint to add to an existing selection, okay? Now we also have subtract. So we can erase. Very similar. Now on top of that, we can change the size and the settings of the brush. So we want a softer brush for feathering maybe. Do you want a larger size brush to make more sweeping selections or subtractions? You can do that too. So you can change the size of the brush. Very cool. The other options are pretty self-explanatory. Sample all layers means that if you have more than one layer visible, then when it looks at what to add or subtract or what to include in the selection, it's going to take into account all the layers, not just the background, not just the layer you're clicking on, not just the layer that's selected, but all the layers. Auto enhance, what this does is it adds another level of refinement. So for example, when I go in and make a selection with this tool, you'll notice is kind of on the fly making choices. You can see as I click and hold my mouse, it's making those choices. When I let go, it does a final auto enhance. What it does is it looks one last time at those edges and makes a final judgment on those. So if you're finding that that is making more mistakes than your paintbrush is, you may want to turn that off and try it again and just see without that what results you get. You notice now it's building the selection as I go. And then when I let go now, it's not adding that extra auto enhancement. I'll try to do this again. Maybe you can see it. But here I go. I'm ready to finish. I let go. See, it's no auto enhance. It just gives you what you had. So anyway. All right. The refine edge. We're going to get to this on a whole nother tutorial. We will get to it. I know I keep saying that, but yes, we will get to it. We're not going to get there yet, though. Okay. Let's talk about... Oh, by the way, the same thing goes with this file as with the CD. When you've made your perfect selection and everything's fine-tuned and you've got it as good as you can get it, you're going to go to Select menu and choose Save Selection. Okay. You'll give it a new name. This applies, it's the same file. You're going to use the bag PSD file, new channel, but give it a new name also, call it bag selection, whatever. Be creative, that's fine, it doesn't matter. It'll end up here on your channels like it did before. All right, let's go over now and take a look at the screwdriver project. For this one, you can explore these lasso tools. Now we've got the regular lasso tool, the polygonal, and the magnetic. How do these work? Let's take a look. Starting with the regular, what this does is it lets you draw your selection. So rather than, let's say, the circular, elliptical, or rectangular marquee tool, this tool lets you use your mouse to determine the shape of the selection. So you can see my mouse skills are not the best. I'm trying, but it's hard. Here we go. There we go. All right. So I made a selection based upon drawing that with my mouse. And so depending upon, if you're on a laptop, you're at a huge disadvantage with this tool because that's really hard with the touchpad. So maybe go out and get a mouse and plug that into your USB slot. They're quite cheap. I would recommend it if you're working off a laptop with Photoshop anyway. It's just not easy to use a touchpad. But if you want to try, go for it. There you go. So that, it made a selection. I did the best I could. But yeah, it wasn't perfect. Be aware that this tool, like the others, have a feather. So in this case, I didn't look. It has 6 pixel feather, and that's not what I wanted. So I wanted a 0 feather, but that's why it kind of rounded that selection a little bit and softened it. So not perfect, but okay. You get the idea. Make sure your feather is at 0 when you do your initial. Now, again, you can add, you can subtract, you can intersect, just like you could with the marquee tools. Nothing's new there. But again, you're going to want to take advantage of the quick mask mode to make those fine-tune adjustments. Zoom way, way, way in. Use your paintbrush and just paint with the black and white colors, okay, to get that selection just perfect before you save it out and give it a name. Okay, so that's going to be your task. Now, is the regular lasso tool the best tool for the job? Let's compare. So here's the polygonal. Now with the polygonal lasso tool, what this does is it lets you select and then use straight lines. So you notice I'm clicking. Every time I click, this is kind of like using the pen tool maybe. A little closer to that. I can click, and every time I do, it anchors that selection to create a series of straight lines. So as I go through that, I'm making a selection and gradually completing it. So that's with the polygonal lasso tool. All right, so you can see that that is going to give you a lot of straight anchor points, a lot of straight lines in between. It's not as good as the regular lasso tool in this case, because the shape is really not designed towards something that's a straight edge. If this were like a stop sign or something, it would work a lot better. But in this case, no, not really. The magnetic lasso tool, last but not least, this one's even more like the pen tool in that you can actually see these anchor points. Maybe I should zoom in a bit here so you can see better. There we go. And it's going to create little anchors as you go around the shape, again, using contrast to figure out where to place those. But as I go through, I can click and drag with my mouse to tell it that, yes, I'm happy with that area. I'm using my space bar to move as I'm zoomed in here. And I'm just clicking to add these anchor points in places I think that make sense. And it's using contrast, once again, the contrast between the black handle and the beige carpeting to figure out how to select. So in this case, because I have a high contrast object, it's doing a pretty good job. So is this tool working better than my regular lasso tool? Well, it kind of depends on how good you are with your mouse, I think. It's probably a lot easier if you're on a touchpad, I'll tell you that, but you can see it's not nearly a perfect selection. I still have made a lot of mistakes, but you know, it's not bad. All right, so again, you have your traditional add, subtract, intersect. You have your ability to anti-alias and to feather. We're not going to go into that. Things that are different here, width and contrast. Okay, so the width is really is basically your kind of range in which it's going to look. So it's not going to go looking way out here. If I have it set to 10 pixels, it's going to kind of look within 10 pixels of range of my mouse. And the contrast is going to be based upon, again, it's kind of like tolerance with the Magic Wand tool. So it's going to give me a chance to sort of set how sensitive that's going to be, okay? And then with the frequency as well, to sort of fine tune exactly, how well that tool works. I don't know that it's really going to benefit you that much to play with these settings the way that we did with the Magic Wand. It's really kind of up to you. But in my experience, I just kind of use this as a very rough draft to get the rough selection, and then I'm going to go into my quick mask mode and fine tune it. Everybody's different. If you really want to play with those settings and get it just perfect, maybe that works for you. But again, it's not my tool of choice. But then again, there are lots of selection options, I think, that are available to you. So you may want to just choose any number of these to work with when you get deep into Photoshop. But for this exercise, I would ask you to use these tools so you can get a chance to experience them firsthand to see how you like them. And then if you never want to use these tools again, that's up to you. Everyone's going to make their own decision. Like a lot of things in Photoshop, the deeper we go, the more it's going to be a question of knowing what's available to you and deciding which tools work best for you as an individual. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it that for that particular grouping of tools. And once again, of course, you're going to save your selection, select save selection, and save your selection channel as part of the screwdriver file that we're going to use. Okay. So you'll turn, once you've refined all your selections and saved those out for the bag, the screwdriver, and the CD, you're going to save those files and for those to be ready to turn in. Now, the last exercise revolves around the advanced selection options, which we're going to look at next. I'm going to go ahead and make that another tutorial, another video. So in the third and final in this series, we'll be focused on this elusive refine edge tool that I keep mentioning that we never get to. We're going to take a look at that and finally show you what that's all about and some of the cool things that it can do for you on specialized selections. So again, this concludes our look at these first three files. For the next lesson, we're not going to use these anymore, so you can go ahead now if you'd like and just take some time to build the perfect selection exploring and using these tools and saving those selections out before the third and final video on advanced selections. We'll see you next on that one.